Hey guys, it's Thomas here with Technovision and welcome back to our JDA tutorial series. Now in this episode we're going to be talking about command options, which are those little command line arguments you can pass in to your commands, and I'm going to be showing you that right now. So to get started, let's go over to our command manager class here. And if you remember in the last episode, we just did some pretty basic slash commands in here, and we're going to be making some more slash commands as, an example, but this time we're just going to attach some command line options to them. So we're going to start by, of course, adding a new command. So let's go down to our onGuildReady event where we register our guild commands. And again, remember, you can use global commands or guild commands. I just prefer guild commands here because they update pretty much instantly for your bots. And we're going to create a new command here. So let's make some space. If you remember last time we register them and then we update them. So for this first command, I want to do a /say command. This is going to make the bot say a message of your choice, and then eventually we're going to also add in a feature to send that message to a specific channel as well using command line options. So let's first create the command. So command data.add. And we can pass in again a command.slash here, and this will create a slash command data object. And just like last time, just like we have up here, we put a name for the command, so in our case say, and a description. So let's put make the bot say a message. Great. Alright, so again, this would be a normal command, how you'd register a normal command, but to add some options or some command line arguments, right after this // here on the slash, what is this called again? Slash command data objects, you would do a dot, and then you would add on an add option here, add option method. And this will allow you to pass in, just like you would expect, an option data object or some data that is similar. So we're going to do .add options. And you want to pass in an option data object into here, or several. So we need to actually create those. And we're going to create one option data object per, argument for our command. So just to sort of paint this out for you, we want this command at first, before we get too complicated, to just be command is /say, and then we want the user to enter in like a message. So we want it to just be like that, right? Pretty basic command with one argument. So we need to create this option here. So to do that, we can do option data, and let's call this option 1, I guess, is equal to a new option data object. And let me just really quickly import this, or I guess it did it automatically, good. And then we're gonna pass in, I believe, 3 or 4 arguments here. So first, the type. So option data, or option type rather, dots, and you can choose a type. So there's a lot of these different types here, and these are going to interact directly with the Discord API, which is really helpful. So if you want the user to enter in for this option a channel name, for example, you would do channel. If you wanted them to enter in a user, you would do, where's user? Right here, user. There's also roles. You can use an integer or a number if you want to use a decimal. Boolean, string, there's so many different options, and we're going to show you a couple of them right now, but for right now we want this to be a message, like a string message, so we would go with the string option type. And then you want to type in the name of this option, so whatever it's going to say right here as like the name of the argument. So in our case it's just message. And then you can also pass in a description for this argument, and this will pop up in Discord when the user is entering in that argument. It will just show a little description message. So in this case, we want to put, I guess, the message you want the bot to say. Great. And then the last argument, and this is optional depending on what you're looking for, but you can actually specify if this option should be required or if it's an optional option, I guess. So we can just type in basically true or false for this. Hold on, it's going off of screen a little bit, but yeah, true if we want it to be required, or false if you want it to not be required. But of course, you could also just not pass anything in, and that would set it to false automatically. So we want this to be set to true because we do not want the user to just use /say. That would break the command in our case. So we want there to always be an option, message option. So we're going to pass in true here so that the user always has to pass it in. It's a required option. Okay, great. So now that we've created this option, we can just pass it into .add options. So yeah, just pass in option 1. And because this uses a spread operator, you could just add a comma and keep adding options as many as you want. I think the minimum is, or the maximum is like 25. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, so you can keep adding options. You could do like option 2 and so on. So yeah, All right, so we've registered the command here, but there's no actual implementation for it. So it'll pop up in Discord, but we have no implementation up here for it, of course. So let's do that right now. So let's catch another, else if here. So else if, and then we're gonna make sure the command dot equals. In our case, the command name is slash, right? Or not slash, say rather. So say. So when the user uses slash say, then whatever is inside of this else statement will execute. So again, the way I want this to work is that you pass in a message and the bot just sends it in the chat pretty much. So to get this option here, to get the data that the user passed into this option, we can do event. And again, remember that's grabbing this event object up here that comes with the slash command event. So event dot get option. And you can actually pass in the name of the option and it will retrieve that option. So in our case, we put for this option here, the name is message, right? So we can just look for, with get option, message. And this will give us a option mapping object. And we can just call this message option. Great, and let me just import this really quickly. Cool, so this get option here, it's getting an option mapping object. But of course, if we want to get the raw data out of this option, we'll have to actually do a little bit more here. We can do message option dot, and then you can get as whatever type it is. So in our case, I believe it was a string, right? We set option type to string here. So we would do get as string, and this would get the string version. So you always want to get, obviously, the type that you have set for your option. Otherwise, you're definitely going to throw an error at some point. So yeah, you can do that. And you can set this equal to a string. So string message. And there we go. So this, again, will pretty much just get the data that the user passed into that individual argument. And if that sounds confusing, I'll show you an example in Discord in a moment. But yeah, another thing to mention is if we actually required this here is required, so this will always have data inside of it. Otherwise, the command wouldn't be run because it is required. But if it's not required, then you may want to make sure that this actually this message option was passed in, that the user actually sent something for it. And so for that, you could just do if message option is equal to null. This would you could like throw an error here, or you could do if message option is not equal to null, and then you could grab that string. And that's just going to make sure that no errors are thrown, of course, because you want to make sure you actually have the option available before you actually do get as string. But of course, this option in particular is required, so it's always going to be set with some data, so we don't actually need to do this here, but just something to keep in mind. Okay, so now that we have the message data, we want to send it in the channel, right? So to do that, we can just get the channel that this command was run in with event.getChannel, and we can just send message. Send message, we can throw that message in there. It's just a string object. And of course, we need to .queue it up because it's an action. And you might think that this is like totally done with the command, but again, remember that we always have to reply exactly one time per slash command. So even though we are sending a message in this channel here, we are actually not replying to the event itself. So again, remember we have that event.reply object, or again, you could also do that event.getHook.sendMessage. If you do the defer reply. So we do always have to reply even if we've already sent a couple messages. So after we've sent this message in the channel, let's event.reply, and let's just send a message back to the user saying your message was sent. And we can .queue this up. And it actually might make sense to make this an ephemeral message because we would only want the user who sent the command to see this. So we can do .set ephemeral true. And yeah, this should be working great. So let's actually try this out by running the bots and going to Discord. All right, so we're in our Discord testing server here, and we can do slash and go to our tutorial bot, and you can see we have the /say command here, and it does actually have that argument we passed in for it, that option rather, called message. So, and it says make the bot say a message. So let's click on that, and you can see we have our description here as well. So the message you want to say to the bot, and we can pass in whatever we want. So hello, I am a robot, smiley face. And there we go. So it sent the message in chat like we expected, and then it sent us an ephemeral message with a response saying your message was sent, and we can just dismiss this whenever we're ready. Great, so everything is working perfectly. All right, so now let's get a little bit more advanced, and let's modify this command to actually take two arguments. So what I want to do is have /say message, but then I also want you to pass in an optional command. So you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but it's optional, of a channel. And this will actually send the message to that specific channel. So a little bit more advanced. And again, this is optional, so you could just use the /say message, and we want it to default to the channel that you ran the command in if we don't have this this particular option set. So to do that, again, we just want to come down here and create another option. So option data, and let's call this super boring name, but option 2, I guess, is equal to new option data. And before I do this, I should mention it's probably better to just do these in line in the add options method here, but I'm doing them as separate objects so it's more clear for you guys for educational purposes. But anyway, yeah. So first we type in the option type. So in our case, we want to get a channel name. So option type dot channel, and there we go, channel, and pass in a name. So in this case, just channel, a description, and I think we should put, I guess, the channel you want to send this message in. And again, this is actually not a required option. This is a optional option. So we could just leave this as is and it would default to optional, or we could also pass in false here for the is required. Either one is fine. I'll just leave it as false just so it's easier for you guys to see, but just know that, again, this is optional. If you didn't have that set, it would default to an optional commands. Or an optional option. It's like a tongue twister. But yeah, so now that we've set this up, we can actually add this option to our command. So again, this add options method that we've kind of appended onto our /, we just pass in another option, and there we go, it's added it to the command. So let's go up and modify our implementation now. So we now have several options to check for. So let's grab that second one now. So we can do option mapping, and let's call this channel option, I guess, is equal to, and then again, same thing as last time, event dot get option, and in this case, again, we named it channel, right? So let's channel, and because this is an optional option, we want to do a check if it's null, because we don't know if the user passed in any data for it or not. So if channel option is not equal to null, then we can actually grab that channel. So what I want to do is, again, grab the channel if it's set, but if there's no channel set, if the user has not passed in data for this option, then we should default to the channel that the event was run in, just like we did previously with the /say message. So let's actually get a channel object here at the top. So message channel channel. And we want a message channel specifically because it has to be a channel that we can send a message back to. And if the channel option is not equal to null, so if it's been set, we can set our channel equal to channel option dot get as. And now with channels, there's a lot of different things that you can get it as. Again, just like you would get it as a string or an integer. There's different channel types you can get, and I'll talk about this in more detail, how we can set specific channel types. But in our case, we would want to get as a message channel. A message channel, I believe, includes pretty much every message type or any channel type that allows you to send messages. So news channels, text channels, I think, let's see what else, threads, all that stuff. So let's get as a message channel. And you can play around with this yourself as well and see what works. But and if it's not set, so if there's no data, then we're just going to set the channel equal to event.getChannel. So yeah, pretty simple stuff. Just grab it if it's there, and if it's not, then set it to the default channel of this command. And now instead of using this event.getChannel to send our message, we can just use our channel object. So let's get rid of this channel object. And send message, it's gonna throw, I guess, a warning here just in case the channel is equal to null or doesn't exist. But because this is interacting with the Discord API, you should almost never run into that issue, and you'll see that in a moment. So let's actually run the bot and test this out in Discord. And we can come over here to our test server, and let's do /say. And there we go. So we see that we have this required argument, our message argument, but then we also have one additional option, one optional option. So let's click on this and let's type in our message. So, hey guys, what's up? And then if we just send this, as normal, hit enter. There we go. It sent it in the channel that we ran this command in. But let's try it again with /say. And let's make our message this time, hey, I am in a different channel. And we can actually click an option here. So we have, these are some of our optional options. We only have one. The channel you want to send this message in. So let's click that. And you can see here that Discord provides, because we set as an option type the channel, it actually provides us all of the channels for this guild. So we have all of the categories, so text channels and voice channels, and we have individual channels, and it actually also provides voice channels as well. So we could do, we're in the general channel, right? So let's do testing. And yeah, hit enter. And there we go. It says your message was sent. And if we go to testing, there we go. It sent the message to the right channel. Hey, I am in a different channel. So this is great. It's working perfectly. However, something that may be annoying for your implementation, if we sort of run this again, type in a message like, whatever. When you're selecting a channel here, you might notice that you can select voice channels, right? And obviously, if we try to send this to a voice channel here or something, or like a category, it's going to throw an error. You can see that in the console. There's an error, and the application is not going to respond. So you might want to filter those out of your command so that people don't even have the option to select those. And you can do that by coming back to your code here. Let me just turn off the bot and go back down to where you made your options here. So in our case, that would be option 2, I believe. And it's going to get a little crowded here, so bear with me as I sort of make room. But you're going to, at the end of this option data object, call a method called dots set channel types. So yeah, so let's bring this down here so that you can actually see it, because it is running a little bit off screen here. But you would do dot set channel types. And you can actually set all of the channel types that are available for this specific option. So anything you type in here, it will whitelist those as the options. So I want users to be able to, and you'd pass in a channel type object here, channel type. I want them to be able to set, or for this argument, a text channel. I also want them to set a news channel. And then I also want them to set a, let's say public threads, sure. Channel type dot guild public thread. And there's also like private threads, and there's a lot of stuff you can choose. But yeah, so now that we've whitelisted these three, it should only provide these as available channels when we run the command. So let's actually run the bots. Go to Discord, and let's run the /say command again, /say, whatever, random message. And then when we try to click channel here, you can see that there's no longer any voice channels, there's no longer any categories, there's just text channels. So everything's working perfectly, and there won't be any errors because people can only select the channels that you've specified in your actual bots. Now, another cool thing that you can do with command options is you can actually set a list of predetermined values that users can select from instead of being able to just enter in whatever data they want. And this may allow your commands to be a little bit more focused in scope than just allowing people to enter in anything for that actual command arg. So I'm going to show you an example of this with a new command example. So let's create another command here called /emotes. And I want this to be a command where you choose a type from a list of predetermined options, like, for example, hug or kiss or laugh or whatever emote you want to set. And I want it to reply back with just like, a basic sentence saying you did that action pretty much. Super basic, but yeah, we're going to create another command here. So let's do command data, and I'm going to kind of speed up since we've done this many times now. We're going to just add a command dot slash. And the name of this one, again, is going to be /emotes. The description is going to be express your emotions through text, I guess. Sure. And then we can do, at the end here, dot add options to throw in an option data object. And we need to actually create that option data object, just like we did with our /say commands. So we're going to create an option data object. So option data, it's called option 3, I guess. Really bad name, but just for an example here. Is equal to a new option data object. And the option type in our case is going to be a string because it's just some text. So option type dot string. And then the name is going to be type. The description is going to be the type of emotion to express. And we want this to be required. So we're going to pass in true for the is required field. All right, so this is just a regular string. Oh, let me really quickly just throw in this option into the add options method. But yeah, like I was saying, this is going to be a basic string command option, but we can add a choice here by doing at the end of this option.object dot add choice. And you can also do add choices if you want to add several, but you can also just chain on the add choice method here, which I prefer. I think it's cleaner. But yeah, so I'm gonna actually bring this down just so it's a little bit easier to see. And you can add an individual choice, and you can keep adding as many as you want. But for the first choice, I want it to be hug. So this will be one of the options they can select from a list. I'll show you in a little bit in Discord so you can see how this works. But and then you also have a value. So the name is how it's going to display in Discord when you're selecting from the list, and the value is what you're actually going to get in Discord up here when we implement the actual command itself. So I wanted to just get hug in lowercase, I guess. And we can add another option here with dot, or not option, rather a choice. Sorry, misspoke. Dot add choice, and let's add another choice called laugh. So, and then that'll be the value, laugh. And then dot add choice, and let's do one more. Let's do cry. And value is cry. Great. So now when the user enters in data for this specific option, it's not going to let them enter in anything except for these 3 specific values from a list that they can select from. So now that we've actually registered and added the commands, let's do the backend implementation. So again, we're going to do a else if statement here. And again, just a reminder, this is in the on/command interaction events. So else if the command dot equals, in our case, emotes is the name of the commands. Then first thing we want to do is just grab that message option, or that option. So option mapping, option is equal to event.getOption, and I believe we named it, was it type? Yeah, type is the name, so we're looking for type. And we don't need to check if it's null because I believe we set this as a required option, so it's always going to be set with data. So let's just grab the actual data itself. So string type is equal to option dot get as string. All right, so now we have pretty much one of these 3 values. So let's actually do a switch case statement to see which one it is, and then we can react accordingly. So let's do switch type dot, and then maybe we could set it to lowercase to make sure that it's all going to be the same. And then we can just do a case for each. So first one I believe was hug. So if the passed in data is hug, then we could do something. And we could do this for all 3 options. So I believe the second one was laugh, right? So laugh. And then last one was cry. So cry. So this again, basic Java is just going to check which of these we got as a response. So if it's a hug, well actually before we do this, let's set a message, a string message here. And this is going to be the reply message. So if the option that was passed in was hug, we can set the reply message equal to you hug the closest person to you. Not very exciting, but this is just an example, so yeah. And then we could also do the same thing for laugh. So laugh is equal to you laugh hysterically at everyone around you. And then one more time with cry, with cry as an option. It's equal to you can't stop crying. Sure, you can't stop crying. This is such a basic command, but yeah. So now that we have the reply message set, we can just respond as we would normally. So event.reply, throw that in there, that reply message, and then queue that up. Yeah, so this should be working great. Let's actually try this out by running our commands. And let's go to our Discord here, and let's do /emotes. And there we go, you can see emote with a type. And we can set the type, and you can see here that there are already the 3 preset options that we've selected. So hug, laugh, and cry. And if we were to try and type something else in, like, I don't know, hamburger, whatever, and hit enter, you'll see it's not a valid choice. So we actually can't enter in custom data. We have to choose from this list, or we can type to autofill. So like I type in cry myself. But yeah, let's do hug first. And there we go, you hug the closest person to you. And then, you know, if I were to choose something else like laugh, you laugh hysterically. And then let's do one more time. Slash emotes, cry. You can't stop crying. So yeah, everything is working perfectly with those preset options. All right, so I'm gonna show one more example now with a third example commands, and this is just gonna use a couple, you know, more complex object types for actual option data. So we're gonna create down here a new command, and this is gonna be the /give role commands. And I want you to pretty much grab a user from the server, so a user, and then I want you to select a role as well from the server, and it's gonna give that role to that user. So pretty basic, but it's using some more advanced option types. Instead of just a string, we're using a user object here and a role object. So to do that, again, let's register the command with command data dot add commands dot slash, and then the name I believe is gonna be just give role. And for the description, we can do something basic like give a user a role. And we can finish that off. But again, we want to dot add options here, and we're gonna throw in an option, or two option data objects rather. So we're gonna create the first one with option data. Let's call this option 3, or option 4 rather. We already have option 3 up here. Is equal to new option data. And so this first one is gonna be the user object, the user to give the role to. So for this option type, we're gonna pass in option type dot user here. And for the name, we want to call it, I guess, just user. For description, the user to give the role to. And then we want this to be required, so we want to pass in true for the is required field. And let's do one more option data object. So option data option 4 is equal to new option data objects. And this, or not 4, we already used that name, option 5. And this one is going to be the role. So we want to pass in for the option type dot role. And the name is just going to be role, super basic. And the description, the role to be given. And then of course we also want this to be required as well for our particular case. And then we can pass in these two options into our dot add options method like always. So option 4 and option 5. All right, great. So now we just need to add the backend implementation like always. So come back up to your on/command interaction event. It's getting very crowded. Don't worry, in the next few episodes, we will be talking about a command manager to clean this entire class up. But yeah, for now, we're just gonna do once again another else if, and we're checking if the command dot equals /give role, right? So checking if it equals give role. And if it does, then we're gonna get the user object and then the role object. So let's do events.getOption, and what did we call it? Just user, right? Yeah, user. And because it's a required field, and there's always going to be data inside of it because we set is required to true, we can actually skip this option mapping step. We can just set it immediately equal to a user object. So user is equal to and then you could just immediately get as user. So that would be an easier way if it's a required option, since again it's always going to have data inside of it. We can get it as a user. You can also get user objects as a member. And if you don't know the difference, a user is just a user in Discord in general, and a member is a user object for that specific guild. So I think it's probably better to use a member here because we're assigning a role to a specific member in a specific guild. So let's get as member. And if we do that, we have to actually get a member object instead of a user. So I think you can actually set a role using a user object as well, but let's just do this in this case so it's a little bit simpler. Let's actually call this member instead. So yeah, just so you know, you can use .get as member or get as user depending on your use case. But yeah, so now that we have the member, let's also get the role. So role is equal to events.getOption. We named it role. .get as role. So yeah, super basic. We have now the user that was passed in, and we have the role that was passed in. We can check, all sorts of stuff. We can check if the member still exists in the server. We might want to check maybe if the role still exists. So let's do, well, actually, no, we know that the role is going to exist because this is using the Discord API. it's hooked into the Discord API. So it won't even display a role if it doesn't exist anymore. So we don't even have to check for any of that. It does all that for you, which is really great. So let's just add the role to the member. So events.getGuild, and with this guild object, we can add role to member here. Again, there's a lot of stuff you can do with this guild object, like I've mentioned many times in the past. But dot add role to member, and this passes in a user, a member, a user or a member, either one. That's what user snowflake means in a role. So member, and then role, and this is also an action, so we dot queue it up. And yeah, so this is adding the role to the member. But again, this is not a reply to the message, so we still need to reply as well, because again, there's always has to be one reply per slash commands. So events dot reply, and we can just send a message that just says member dot get as mention has been given the, let's get that role, so role dot get as mention. So user has been given the whatever role, role, and we can queue that up. Great. So really basic command. We're just grabbing the command line data, we are adding the role to the member, and we're just displaying a message. So if we run this command and go back to Discord, let's really quickly run this. So you can see I have no roles right on me, but let's do slash role, or give role rather, give role, and you can see user and role are the options here. So for the user, we can type in any user we want. So in my case, let's do Technovision. So I'm giving myself this role. And for the role here, we can select any role that's on the server. So in our case, I set some basic, preset roles. So let's do the gold role. And if we hit enter, there we go. Technovision has been given the gold role, and you can see that I now have the role. So everything is working perfectly. All right, so that's gonna do it for command line options. There's a lot of different ways that you can use these, so you're gonna have to play around with it yourself, but I just wanted to show you a few examples so you can sort of get comfortable seeing how they would be used in specific scenarios. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.